Okay, I'd like to welcome you to this webinar on your continuing professional development. I think most of you will have joined having been selected for this year's annual sample. So hopefully we'll be giving you some ideas as to what we're expecting, how the audit happens, and help you on the process. Before I start, a couple of housekeeping issues. So just to let you know that this webinar is being recorded so that we can post it online later to go to a wider audience and anyone who hasn't been able to join us this afternoon. I'd ask if you can ask any questions through the Q&A button that you should find in the menu bar at the bottom of the Zoom meeting screen. I found that you may need to pass your mouse button below the window just to bring up the menu, but hopefully you can find that. Ask questions throughout. We'll try and answer them, certainly come back to them at the end and make sure that we have answered all of your questions. That is part of the purpose of today, that you ask any questions that you've got or any issues that you're finding. The other thing is, if you're struggling to hear me for whatever reason or need to be on silent, there is a captions button in the menu bar that will show an artificial intelligence version of what I'm saying. Right. So what is CPD? We'll say a lot more about this as we go through, but I think it's worth making sure that everyone has the premise of the understanding before we start. So continuing professional development is the mechanism by which engineers maintain and extend their professional competence. You may find that people refer to it as continuous, continued, continuing, constant. It doesn't matter what the C actually stands for. What we're after is making sure that people remain competent as engineers throughout their careers. So just to put the context of why we do it, the wooden box that you can see there is the world's first computer mouse. That was developed in and first came to the market in 1973, 50 years. That is a career span. And we've now moved on to retina tracing and various movement controls and laser scanning devices to do the same thing. So technology moves on rapidly, and we need to keep pace of that. Napoleon stated that we have to change tactics every 10 years if you wish to maintain superiority. That's the same in terms of engineering knowledge. We have to keep pace. And the pace of innovation is rapidly accelerating. The examples we've got there, so 75 years to 50 million users for the telephone, 68 years for 50 million passengers on airplanes. Cars and automobiles, 62 years. The light bulb, 46 years. By comparison, Angry Birds, when it came out, took 35 days to get to 50 million users. We have to be able to respond rapidly and update our knowledge rapidly. So CPD is not unique to engineering. It's something which most of the professions require, that people demonstrate that they are keeping pace with the technology. At the end of the day, you wouldn't want your surgeon to start operating on you, having come out of medical college 50 years ago and carry on using 50-year-old techniques and outcomes. You expect them to be up to date. The same applies to engineering. We have to keep up to date. A key difference between most medics and us is a medic can only kill one person at a time. We can take out tens, hundreds at a time if we don't get things right. So engineers have always been expected to complete CPD. It has been an Engineering Council requirement from the get-go. However, in 2014, the Engineering Council approved a new CPD code and policy for CPD, which outlined more clearly the requirements and obligations on individual registrants. The policy goes on to outline what constitutes CPD and the obligations that we as the professional engineering institutions have to fulfill in order to demonstrate that the people we're putting forward for registration are competent. Then in 2017, it became mandatory to carry out a random sample of professionally registered active members, which became in 2019 that we had to provide feedback to the members. Then in 2020, we were mandated that where people do not engage in the process of being reviewed, we have to introduce sanctions, which can ultimately lead to losing your registration and loss of CEng, IMechE, or IMechE. There's a further change coming in. So up to now, the obligatory has been to do a 2% annual review. As of 26, we will have to do a 5% review of the registrants. In IMechE, we've been doing a 5% for a number of years, just to make sure that we're on top of what we are obliged to do. A key difference, though, is that where in the past we've been able to state that our CPD is being reviewed and assessed by our employers or by another institution, that option will no longer be there. So everyone who is called up for review will have to submit their CPD records, as you have been as part of this year's cohort. But moving forward, it will be everyone in the selection process will have to submit. And that means essentially for us as the assessors, a doubling of the number of assessments that we have to do each year. So it's going to be quite a big change to what we're expecting to see. Just to set out the Engineering Council requirements. So as I say, there has been a long-standing requirement for professionally registered active engineers to maintain a record of their own CPD activity. As registrants, you need to determine your own development needs and set out a plan as to how you're going to achieve them. And there is an expectation that you'll review that on by and large, an annual basis. Engineering Council has driven our take on CPD to be much more of a learning objectives based approach. So rather than stating a number of hours of CPD that must be completed or a number of activities that must be completed, what we're after is the learning outcomes. I have learned something new. And that is what we deem to be important. And that requires an element of reflection. And I'll talk more about reflection later on. And as part of it, there's also an expectation that professional engineers will assist others with their CPD through mentoring, through volunteering, and the various other activities. As a professional engineering institution, as I said, we have to maintain our ability to register people, we have to carry out a random sample of registrant CPD records. As I say, currently 2%, but it will be rising to 5%. And we have to provide feedback to the members on their CPD performance. As I said earlier, we do now have to remove registrants who fail to engage with the review process. From the IMechE perspective, we have in the bylaws the statements that we have to take reasonable steps to maintain appropriate professional competencies by carrying out CPD. CPD is an obligation throughout your professional life. You do need to record your activities, and again, subject to remedial action in the absence of such records. So let's turn and take a look at what is CPD. So CPD is anything that enhances your knowledge. It's typically aligned to the core competencies. So it extends beyond just technical engineering competence. It's not just about your ability to do a second order differential equation. It is the full aspect of being a professional engineer. So each of the competencies comes into the equation. We're not saying that we expect everyone to do some CPD from section A, B, C, D, E every year, but you do want to make sure that you've got a reasonable balance of activity throughout your career. And it may not be immediately obvious that a piece of CPD is a relevant piece. So I've recently had an instance of someone who had been attending a tyre fitting course. And my initial question was, why on earth would you be doing that as a professional engineer? In their reflection, they explained that they, as a business, use a large number of pneumatic jacks, airbags. And within their business, it was having a significant impact on the number of failures that they were having and the amount of these airbags that they were disposing of. And so this individual wanted to learn about the current best practice in the automotive sector for repairing tyres, another pneumatic system. And on the basis of attending that tyre fitting course, he'd learnt some of the repair techniques that are used for tyres, applied that to their airbags, and had resulted in a significant impact, beneficial impact on the business. So you came away saying that this clearly was a very useful bit of CPD that he'd undergone. So the message is to put down what you've done as CPD and in your reflection, give us the rationale as to why that is applicable and the difference that it makes. Another common misconception is that CPD is only about paid for courses and is a means by which the IMechE and other institutions ensure that their revenue earning courses are popular. This is wrong. As a general rule, in the education sector, there is an expectation that 70% or more of your learning comes about as part of your day-to-day activity. Much of what you do as part of your job is still you learning something new, how to do something, the technologies associated with a particular product stream. That is all learning, and that is all still valid CPD. There's a further 20%, which is informal learning and through things like mentoring, shadowing others, apprenticeships, volunteering. It's informal learning, but related through and learning via other people. And it is only about 10% of your learning total that will come from structured formal courses. And that amount will change as you go through your career. Probably at the start of your career, you'll be more formal, and towards the middle, you'll be more on the job, and towards the back end, it will drift more to informal and mentoring and providing support to others. So that profile will change. It will change with time. It will change with your role within an organization. So we don't have a formal expectation of what we must see. As I said earlier, the IMechE's approach to CPD is about the learning outcomes. If you demonstrate that what you've done is providing you with learning and its relevance to you and your role, then that is valid CPD. There are also there is a lot of free CPD available through the IMechE, through other institutions, through the internet, through Google. As I say, it absolutely does not have to be paid for formal courses. You've got the Professional Engineering magazine. You've got webinar content, which is on the IMechE website. Your regions, your areas will host regular events, most of them free, that you can attend. They will give you opportunities for networking that all counts. In addition, we've got the library with pretty much the largest engineering library in the world. Most of those textbooks, journals, and articles are free, and you can download them and review. So there is a lot of free information out there. On top of that, there are things like the various student challenges that are organized, volunteering events. They all need people to help support, run them, judge them, and provide you an opportunity to do some of the more volunteering type activities. On top of that, you've got things like STEM engagement with schools, supporting younger people in selecting engineering as a career. So, what is our approach to CPD? As I said earlier, the amount of CPD that you undertake and its content will vary throughout your career. There is absolutely no minimum requirement for your CPD, but we do expect you to be doing an amount of CPD that you have deemed to be sufficient to keep your knowledge up to date. As I say, it is not about hours or points. Whilst in the review, we do make a statement as to whether we feel that what you are doing is sufficient or not. We obviously do not know you as assessors. All we see is the information that you've provided through the audit tool, your name, your age, and your role, and that is it. So we have to make judgments on the basis of that limited information as to whether it is reasonable to expect this amount of CPD or not, and we will make statements accordingly. But at the end of the day, it is you that is best placed to make those decisions. And by that, I also mean that it is not your employer who has the best view on what's needed. And the example here is if you're in an industry that is a dead end and you're in a dead end role, you may well, or you would be unlikely to be wanting to tell your employer that you are looking to get the hell out of there. So you need to keep control of your CPD. It is you developing your own career and making sure that you achieve what you want from your career. And as I said earlier again, you have almost certainly been doing a lot of CPD. Just make sure it gets recorded, and then it will count in the various reviews. We expect people who are professionally active to be maintaining their CPD. Obviously, there are various reasons in life where people cease to be professionally active. And that is for a number of reasons. As you can see here, if you've moved on to a role which no longer has any engineering content and don't intend to return to that, then you are perfectly at liberty to register yourself as professionally inactive. And that is all we need to know. Others will be on extended career breaks, maternity, caring, whatever it is. Again, we don't need to know why, but that would be a reason for stating that you're no longer professionally active. I make the point there that if you do plan to come back into the profession at a later date, then we would be expecting to see some sort of plan as to how you're intending to bring your knowledge back up to currency. Then there are the retired members who have truly retired from engineering and no longer wish to do anything technical. Now, we see a lot of audit submissions come through of people who are well into their 80s and still doing significant amounts of CPD and engineering content through voluntary activities, through STEM engagement. We know that at that point you're not going to be doing the same amount as someone who's just come into the profession, but you can keep your CPD going quite easily even after retirement. So I'm just seeing a question there. Will you lose your CEng status if you're inactive for a period of time? And the answer to that is no, currently not. Engineering Council is quite clear that if you state that you are professionally inactive and there is no evidence that at some point that you are professionally active, then there will be no expectation that you will lose your CPD, your chartership or incorporated status. Right. So, like everything else in this world, the CPD cycle is the dreaded virtuous cycle. We expect people to set your goals, and key to identifying that is self-appraisal. Consider your career aspirations. Where do you want to go with your career? But tie into that your social aspirations. How do you want to act with the wider community and your domestic needs? Clearly, work-life balance is critical, and there's no point setting aspirations that end up destroying you. From there, you identify your needs. We would recommend using the SWOT analysis tool, and there is a tool on the IMechE website that will help you with that. SWOT being strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, commonly used as a way of assessing strategy. So it's all about doing a self-appraisal and identifying where the gaps are in relation to your goals. Once you've identified the gaps, that's when you need to start developing your plan, creating an action plan and setting your targets. Again, following the usual set of tools that we have for doing goal setting and objective setting, we highly recommend using the SMART acronym. So the expectation that you make sure that what you're saying is specific. So be clear about what it is that you're trying to achieve. So one of the goals that we often see stated is I expect to be the CEO in the next 2 years' time. Well, that doesn't really help try and explain how you're going to achieve it. What do you need to be doing specifically to make that happen? It needs to be measurable. So again, you need to have some sort of quantification of how you're going to demonstrate that you have actually achieved that objective. It needs to be achievable. You're not going to become CEO of an international company 2 years after you've graduated. Make sure it's realistic and achievable. It needs to be relevant to what you're trying to do, and you need to set some sort of clarity on the time scales that you're doing it. So we're expecting to see short, medium, and long-term objectives that define how you're going to get to where you want through your career path. Once you've set your plan, obviously we then move into the rest of the cycle. So do the learning, record it, and then, as we've said, you need to reflect and review on what you've done and feed that back into the process. So there are a wide number of tools that you can use to record your CPD. We have the tool on the website, the Career Developer tool that is available. Many of you will have seen it. Relatively simple. You record the activities in there. You're able to upload documents and show what you've done. We also have, for those that are more spreadsheet orientated, like myself, we have a spreadsheet tool that enables you to set your goals, keep a log of all the activities. It includes the SWOT analysis. Those are the tools that we provided within IMechE, but at the end of the day, we will accept information on any reasonably uploadable system. We receive the CPD records as Word documents, as PDFs. Individuals develop their own spreadsheets. It doesn't matter how you record it, as long as it's being recorded and it's in a format that you can upload onto the audit tool, then that's good enough for us. One of the things that we often get asked is, or challenged over on the audit is, clearly people are doing sensitive or commercially important information that they don't want to divulge to everyone else, and we are not asking for that. You should be able to refer to any activity that you're doing in sufficiently broad terms that it doesn't breach any commercial or security information. If you need to, you're free to redact information that you submit, as long as there's enough to give us the sense that you're doing some CPD and it is leading to you learning. That's all we need to know. When you're doing the reflection, though, do try and include sufficient information to act as a reminder to yourself. You may not wish to submit the full reflection to us. Again, that's perfectly acceptable, but make sure that you've got the reflection that you need. We do sometimes get people putting full documents and reports that they've produced and presentations that they've made. They will submit those to us for the review. Absolutely not necessary, but it doesn't half make the assessor's job much more information, much more interesting. It's very, you get some very good CPD for ourselves just from seeing what some other people have been putting through. So personally, I really enjoy it when people give us the additional information. But as I say, it is absolutely not necessary. Would the information on a CV count as a record? It does. We're looking for CPD to be an annual activity. So when we do the assessments, we only look at activities that are being undertaken in the last 12 months, approximately. We're not going to die in a ditch over something that is 14 months away, especially given the duration of the audit itself. But we are looking for a reasonable amount of activity in that 12-month period, and we discount what's going on before that. As I said earlier, what you're doing as a project does count as CPD. So if your CV is saying that I've been involved in this project and it's novel and I've had to learn about this, that, and the other to do it, then yes, that's still valid information and would count. You've been chartered for 6 months. Guidance on how far back the CPD evidence submitted should be. As I say, we're looking for a 1-year period. So the selection for audit comes through in January, February time. We'd be looking a year back from that. So it's essentially the 1 year from that. But having requested the information, selected people for audit in February, people are only submitting or some people are submitting their evidence now. So that would be through to May, June time in the year. As I say, we're not going to be pedantic about this. This was 13 months away, therefore it doesn't count. We'd still be looking at that. Right. Than that. As I've mentioned several times, reflection is one of the key things, and it is something that is mandated by Engineering Council. It's not just an IMechE thing. Reflection is all about making sure that you get the most out of the activity that you've undertaken. Again, it's not prescribed as to how you're doing things. I encountered a tool that we find very useful to help people structure their reflection. It's the Borton model of reflection that you'll find on the internet. And we have just been updating all of the CPD web pages. We haven't got the figures got in yet, but the information is there. So you'll find more there. But the Borton model essentially asks three questions: what, so what, and now what? What did I learn from the activity? So you're looking back at the past. What did you learn? So what? So that's looking now. What did I learn? How is it relevant to me? And then you're looking forward to the future. How will I be able to use this? How do I build on what I've learned? And what do I have to do next? Is there some further study that I need to do? How do one avoid tautology when reviewing CPD? I'm not sure I understand what you mean by that. If you can expand on that question, I'll come back to it. How far can you go back for CPD evidence? As I say, we will tend to cut off at about 18 months of information when we're doing our assessments. We would be expecting people to have records right the way back to when they start, but obviously we're not going to retrospectively audit. So yeah, I think that's probably what I'd say on that. As I said, don't expect it to be. We don't expect it to be stuff that is formal training. So as I said, you are doing CPD as part of your day job, and just make sure that that's recorded, and in many instances that will be sufficient. In terms of recording through the website, we can help you with that. There's the CPD at IMechE website, which you'll see come up at the end. If you get in touch with them, and if you're having difficulties, then of course you can ask them, and they will help you. They'll put you in touch with an assessor, or do it themselves. Either way, and we'll be able to help you if you're having difficulties. But as I said, we will accept records in any format that you are currently keeping them in: Word documents, Excel spreadsheets, whatever it happens to be. That is a route by which we can do it. Start and end dates for the CPD. I'll come into that more, I think, as I come on to the next piece. So I'll come to that. The next was so I can do XYZ, but could be better. Okay, yeah. Essentially, that is what we're expecting to see in your reflection. That I need to read more from about this subject, and here's the book or the route by which I can do it. So that's what we're expecting to see in the reflection. On the reflection, piece, one of the things that is less helpful is I attended a course and it was really useful. And I'm going to apply it to everything I do from here on in, and know there's nothing else that I need to do. That isn't a particularly helpful piece of reflection, as I'm sure you'll appreciate. What we're expecting is to see, this was the key piece of learning that I got. I haven't been supporting my pressure instrumentation sufficiently, and I'm subject to flow-induced vibration. So what I need to look at what I've got in my facility and make sure that I've supported things adequately. Now what? We are going to do an audit and make sure that we're up to date. That's the sort of reflection that we're expecting to see. Is there an email address? I don't think so. I think that it has to go through the IMechE website, I believe. I think Natasha's possibly on the call. She might be able to, as one of the staff members, she might be able to tell me differently. So the annual sample, as I've said, 5% are selected. It's a random selection. Everyone who is registered gets put into the hat and can be pulled out. Once you have been pulled out, then there is a period of time over which we won't put you back into the hat to be reassessed. We're not looking to do this for everyone on a 1-year basis. Obviously, at 5%, you can expect to be audited 2 or 3 times through your career. But some people will get hit more, some people will be hit less. That's just the nature of a random selection. As I alluded, we're looking at about 2,500 people each year that we're currently looking at. And as I say, from next year, we're going to have to look at every single one of those. In terms of the timescales, we put out the list of people that we're going to be looking at for the year, any time from January through to March. You then have through till the end of June, I think, to get your submissions in. We'll be doing the assessments throughout that period, and the hope is that we achieve all of our assessments by October. We're still trying to get on top of that. We've never achieved it yet in the time that I've been on the committee. But by the end of the year, we have always completed the audit. So you will get your feedback sometime between you submitting and the end of the year. That's just down to the volume that we have to assess and the number of assessors that we have available to us at this time. We are trying to increase the numbers, but we will be getting there, and we're changing the way we do the assessments reviews, which will hopefully make things speed up in years to come. But for now, we're still on the same basis as we have been. And as I said, as it says there, you'll be contacted by email to be selected. You need to make sure that your contact details are correct on the IMechE website. So we do have a number of people each year who have an email address, are paying their membership fees, but we subsequently find that the email address is out of date, and that causes us a problem. So big request is please make sure your contact details are right, because it would be a shame to lose your registration just because we aren't able to contact you. So the question there is about being a someone whose experience and knowledge is 90% of their role, and hence the focus of their CPD, that's absolutely fine. As I say, the 70-20-10 rule is a guide. It is not a mandated balance of what we're expecting. So different roles will have different balances and different balances between technical and non-technical. I'd expect a CEO to be putting in CPD, which is largely around legislative compliance, around financials, legislative, legal contracts and stuff. Whereas someone who is a technical director and a subject matter lead, they'll be largely technology type CPD. Someone whose early career will likely have elements of self-development and leadership development training. Someone whose back end of career has already done that and won't have that. So we will try and recognize what someone's doing on the basis of their role, age, and title of role. Candidate selection. So, right, we have occasionally had a situation where that has happened. Sometimes we will have part feedbacks. So this is a question as to where, having selected option 2, feedbacks come through before all of the evidence was uploaded. It does happen on the basis that what we're looking for is engagement with the process. You're not going to be flagged as having failed and therefore being submitted to the sanctions process. So in that context, it's not going to have a big influence. If that has happened and you do want additional feedback on what you put in, contact CPD at IMechE, and we'll be able to do a manual assessment and pull back a full review for you. I think you can. Well, if you've put in your reflect, so question is, I've submitted evidence and reflection. Is it possible to edit the reflection to make it more useful to the auditors having attended the webinar? If you haven't already received your feedback or the feedback isn't already processing, then I believe that yes, that would work. If it has gone through that stage, then obviously it's a bit late. But again, you're not going to be put into the sanctions process just because the reflection isn't there. We're still seeing a number of people who have put no reflection whatsoever into what they're doing, and we're trying to build up people's knowledge of what we're expecting at this stage. So it's definitely not going to lead to sanctions. So I think we've sort of gone through this. So the sample is on the basis of a series of statements to explain how you've recorded your CPD and submitting the records. As I say, at present we have some options available to you, which you will have had this year, whereby you don't have to get feedback. That will be changing as of next year when we have to provide feedback to everyone. That's that. So what to expect, you'll get high-level feedback based on the information that you've provided. As I say, we don't get CVs or any other information around you. We don't know you. So we're doing the best that we can to tailor the feedback to your situation. But inevitably, there will be cases where we haven't quite understood your role, what you're doing, and it won't quite be relevant. Without doing a face-to-face process, which would obviously take a lot more time and more intrusive. That's a limitation of the way we're doing things. We look at the activity over the past calendar year, as I say, somewhere around 18 months. And we look at things on the basis of the quantity of activity. Is it what we'd be expecting? The quality, is it the right sort of CPD? And it's not overly focused on one particular aspect. And we're looking for evidence of reflective practice. And we also provide some recommendations on the basis of what we're seeing of other areas where there might be some opportunities for you to carry out CPD. And again, just for knowledge, moving forward, we'll be introducing an additional criterion, which is to make sure that planning is much more is the fourth criterion on which we'll be making comments. So turning to the stick side of things, as I say, Engineering Council has stipulated that where registrants fail to engage with the sampling process, we will have to take sanctions. So what happens? Someone who fails to engage will be automatically placed into the following year's audit. If they failed to engage after 2 successive audits, that's when the sanctions process really kicks in. A formal letter will be sent, recorded, registered mail from the chief executive, giving people a final period of grace in which to submit a statement on their CPD record, which is currently 3 months. And unfortunately, if we still have not had anything at the end of that 3 months, so essentially 2.5 years after you've been called for the review process, if you still fail to engage in the process, we have to remove you from the register, and you will no longer be able to use EngTech, iEng, or CEng. And it's also worth pointing out that that will carry through to any other institutions that you may have. It's down to Engineering Council to deal with that, but essentially the message is if you fail to carry out CPD, that will impact all of your registrations. Yes, so what got a question in from one of our assessors, lead assessors. When you're using the website, until you complete the reflection section, you may not be able to declare a record as complete. So there's a bit of tweaking that we're trying to do to make sure that all happens clearly. Sometimes people fail to spot the reflection section and put the reflection into the leading sections. As long as we see that something's there, then we're not going to turn around and ignore it. But just that warning, make sure you move on to the reflection section, and then you can declare the record as complete. Is there an appeals process? So yes, there is an appeals process that will go through. So yes, if someone has got to that, but I would point out that the bar at this stage is incredibly low. You have to engage with the process. You have to demonstrate that you've been doing some CPD. So that is the bar that we're trying to pass at this stage. We're trying to persuade people to do CPD. We're not at this point in a stage of kicking people out just because they're not doing the right or sufficient CPD. Deadlines, is there any margin? I'll go for the politically correct answer and say, of course not. We have to stick to the deadlines because they're the deadlines. On the other hand, we're all doing other things, both staff and ourselves, and so things tend to drift beyond. So the fact that you're a week late after the deadline is not going to cause us a major problem. The one where it does cause a problem is obviously at the end of the sanctions process. If you've got to the end of the sanctions process and the 3-month deadline and the letter's gone out to say you're off, that's it. Sorry. But we have given you 2.5 years up to that point. Is there a check that we haven't missed a call to audit? No, I don't think there is. However, before people get to that stage, you will have had multiple emails, you will have had letters, and as you come through the process, we also have we make a phone call to the recorded numbers that we have for you. So we make every effort we can possibly do to try and make sure that we've encountered you before you get to the point of no return. But I would reiterate, if you are able to go onto the website and check your contact details, that will de-risk. Do we use the CPD audit results for fellowship? Not at this stage. No, there is no link back between what we're doing as the CPD assessment committee and the professional reviews. So no, not at this stage. Right. So yes, at various points I've pointed you at the CPD at IMechE.org website, email address. If you have got any questions that you think of after this event, then by all means get in touch with the guys there, and they will either point you in the direction of an assessor or help you get to the answers that you need. As I alluded, we have a number of assessors that carry out the assessments. They are key to getting an effective and a timely audit. We have a limited pool of assessors at the moment, and we would welcome anyone who is interested in getting in touch. Again, same email. Please get in touch, and there's a form to complete. We do ask that you give us a record of your CPD, not because we're putting you into the audit, and so there's no question of that going through to sanctions. The only reason we ask for that is so that we can see that your understanding of CPD aligns with what we're trying to promote, or is not too far adrift from what we're trying to promote, so that the reviews that you give will be the ones that we're aiming to give out to the registrants. So just a plea, if you're interested, please get in touch and we'll bite your hand off. Final comment is obviously attending today is part of your own CPD. So please record it, reflect on it, and it will count. And I'll go back to the questions. So will multifunction activity, including some mechanical? Absolutely. We might be IMechE, but everyone knows that these days everything that we look at is electromechanical or civil mechanical. I don't care. We don't care whether there's multi aspects to it. It is still CPD. It is still an engineering function, CPD in what I think the context you're trying to imply there. So that would count. as I said, you know what CPD activity is relevant to you. If it's a multi-role thing, then that's relevant to you. We can't second guess that, and it will count. So I'd ask if there's any further questions or any questions that I haven't answered. Can you declare yourself professionally inactive if you fail the first audit? Well, firstly, you don't fail the assessments at this stage. We're not passing or failing. We're giving advice. The only reason that you go through to sanctions is because you have failed to engage. So if in the first audit you have said, you've come back to us and said, I'm doing some CPD, but it's really not that much. We'll give you the advice on what you might consider and try and help you identify the right CPD. As I say, the only way you'll fail the first audit is if you've just ignored it and not come back with anything. If you do that and then declare yourself professionally inactive, again, we don't go back to your CV or try and spy on you to work out whether you're professionally active or inactive. So in principle, yes, if you are inactive and you tell us at that point that you are inactive, then that is job done. Again, we're not sat here as police, but if you declare yourself as professionally inactive and are subsequently found to be active, that could have repercussions. Anything else? Any thoughts on engaging with CPD as a retired engineer following a few projects of disparate nature? Engaging with CPD in any form, whether they're projects of a disparate nature or not, is perfectly valid CPD. We have people who do voluntary activity at STEAM heritage centres. They're not acting in a professional sense, but they are still engaged in engineering and they're still giving opinions on engineering aspects, albeit not paid for, and that is still CPD. Put it down, put some reflection on it, and explain why it's relevant and pertinent to your registration status, and it will be valid. Okay, I'm not seeing any further questions, and we are a minute off from the full time. Unless there are any further questions, I'd just like to say thanks very much for joining us. I hope it's been useful. I hope it helps you to complete this year's assessments. And no doubt I will see some of your assessments when I do the reviews. So thanks very much, and thanks for joining us.